one short of four.
Gwen, well, Fanny came yesterday to pick up her
They'll
packet.
be here.
Greg, you doing okay? Better not deserve. Merry Christmas to you, sir. Thank you.
I'm just,
Yeah, pretty much a court reporter, right, Stephanie?
Yeah.
The clerk.
I think that,
We're gonna get you one of those little masks that you can talk into.
That would be wonderful. It hides everything I say. And your face.
okay, now,
We have a
See your
quorum.
expression.
We need one more.
yes, she's here.
Two more just walked in.
All right, we're in good shape then.
Gwen.
No, get back.
Good morning, Gwen. Merry Christmas to you. Good morning, Miss Blaney.
Am I right here?
Yeah, I think so. Morning, Mayor Chicken. You're doing the invocation?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you got that.
Look at you.
Got one up here, unless you like it down there. Okay.
You guys are
Ah,
all,
yeah, we're rolling now.
yeah. We better do something even if it's wrong.
Mr. Chairman, you're up.
I'm sure we
Am
will.
I in the same wrong spot? I can't read that far. Here, I'll go this way. I knew I saw my name, I just didn't know what it was doing.
Rob this shine. Never knew.
I'll tell you later.
Supposed to be on vacation today. I gotta go to vacation. Hey.
Wow.
Good evening, or good morning. Welcome to the Water and Sewage Facilities Authority regular meeting, December 21st, 2022. It is 8:30 in the morning. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Gwen Flowers-Taylor to deliver the invocation and Jim Skinner to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
If you'll join me. Lord, we come to you this morning in thanksgiving and gratitude for allowing us just to wake up this morning. We ask you to help us this morning to discern what is best for the Spalding County Water Authority and for Spalding County in general. We ask you to give safe travel to those of us who are traveling over the holidays, coming or going. We ask you to protect those that are protecting us throughout this county. We ask people to remember the reason for the season and to express love and joy and happiness throughout this time. We ask you all to put your hands on everyone on this board and in this room, protect us over the holiday, and see us to the first of the year. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Now join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gwen and Jim. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. I think that was 9-0, thank you. Citizen comments. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and the topics they wish to discuss. Speakers must direct your remarks to the authority and not to individual members or the audience. Personal disagreements with individual members or county employees are not a matter of public concern, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The chairman has the right to limit your comments in the interest of disposing of the authority's business in an efficient and respectful manner. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters pertaining to the jurisdiction of the authority. No questions will be asked by any of the members during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. No speaker will be permitted to speak more than 3 minutes, or more than once unless the authority votes to suspend this rule. Dr. Ledbetter.
Mr. Chairman, no one has signed up to speak this morning.
Okay. Item number 6. Item 1.
Mr. Chairman, we do have guests here this morning.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get to them, right?
We'll get to them later. Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank
Sorry.
you.
No
Consider-
one signed up to speak because everybody else is in bed.
Yeah, buddy.
Except for us.
With their electric blankets on.
Yes, electric blankets are on. All right, consider approval of the November 16, 2022 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, they appear to be in order unless anyone has a correction. I move we approve the minutes.
All right, I have a
Second.
motion to approve, and I have a second. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 9-0, motion.
8-0. Huh? 8-0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cheryl's not here.
Cheryl's not here.
Cheryl, excuse me. 8-0, correction. Consider acceptance of the December 15, 2022 Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept those minutes.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 8-0 this time.
Awesome money.
Financial number 7. For you all that are sitting in the audience, what you see on the screen is exactly what we see, so there's total transparency all the way around. Financial report. Consider acceptance of the finance report as presented by the General Manager Johnson.
So first, let me apologize for not doing this sooner. I discovered recently through a conversation with Mr. Morrow earlier this month that many of you may not know who is ultimately responsible for serving our customers. So I'm going to start with the person that's been here the longest with the Water Authority, and that's Mr. Greg Elliott. He joined the authority back in 2009 when we acquired the Springs wastewater plant. So this gentleman has been the ultimate person responsible for ensuring that we meet our NPDES permits. Second is Ms. Charlie Hearn. Obviously, everybody knows her, but people may not know her story. So she was hired in 2007 and worked for the clerk of courts, and we were finally able to add her to the team in 2014, and obviously she's the backbone of the office. Next is Mr. William Ballard. He began his career with Spalding County in 2015 as an employee of the CI. We got him in 2020 with the authority, and he is the person ultimately responsible for our valve maintenance and our fire hydrant program. Next is Mr. Danny Pryor. We received him from the city of Griffin in August of this year. He retired with the city with over 30 years of experience with the city, but brings a wealth of knowledge to our staff. And last but not least is Mr. Richard Martin. So we got him from the city as well. He began his career in the utility industry in 1993, so he also brings a wealth of knowledge. This is the team that's ultimately responsible for what you see here today. So,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and thank you for taking time to be able to come and watch what we do, which in the end works down to, okay, maybe what you do works up to what we're doing, but it's a better way of saying it. All right, General Manager?
so moving to the financial, we've sold 372 million gallons year to date for our fiscal year. Our revenues are still tracking that we'll end the year in FY23 either between 1% to 3% above budget. So everything is tracking as we would anticipate. There's nothing out of the norm. One thing please note, the days held in operating reserve is 223. So remember last month, we wrote that memo to Jenna to have that $1.1 million transferred from the operating to the reserve account, and you see the benefit of that. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the financial report.
All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 8-0. Motion carries. All right. Item number 8, special committee report. Mr. Jim Skinner?
Sure. We met on 12/15 to discuss the reserve balance, and currently got 223 days of operation in the reserve balance fund. And remember, our goal is 270 days. Item 2, discuss and review the resolution authorizing an increase in general manager's spending limit and our procurement policy. The committee reached a consensus to recommend to the authority to adopt our procurement policy as presented and approve the resolution authorizing an increase in the spending limit of general manager from 25 to 50,000, and request that the general manager also go to the Georgia DOT LAP training. Third item that we discussed was consider approval to revise the vacant utility construction coordinator position to an engineer position, as the committee reached a consensus to recommend to the board approving revising the utility construction coordinator position to an engineer position, and approve the job descriptions and salary range as follows. Engineer 2, 60,000 to 65,000. Engineer 3, 70 to 75,000. And engineer 4, 80 to 85,000. And before anybody asks, we're only looking at one position, not 3. Just so, trying to give Joseph the flexibility depending on who actually applies. And that concludes our report.
And I might add that, for those of you who weren't there, the LAP training was taken by Steve. It's for anyone who works with the DOT on contracts, and he's taken this training and thought it'd be very helpful for Joseph also.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you to the Finance Committee for their hard work.
I have
All
a
right,
question.
item number 9.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I was looking through, I read the minutes, but did we actually submit the actual policy, even though it's supposed to mirror Spalding County's policy, the procurement policy? Is it in the agenda packet?
It's in the
Yes.
agenda packet.
Which page?
Under new
Is it
business.
anything different, and excuse me for asking, is it anything different than from Spalding County?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to cover under new business when we get to,
Okay.
you know, us talking as
Okay.
opposed to some Finance Committee.
But there is a resolution and a copy of the policy in the agenda packet.
I must be on the wrong page.
Okay. Item number 9, General Manager Report.
So we'll start with the water loss summary sheet. The water loss that was put in, the non-revenue water that was accounted for through our activities since FY '23 began is 9.2 million gallons of water. And that water equates to roughly $12,000 production cost. We're still in the process of trying to figure out why the non-revenue water amount that has been put on the ground since May is kind of below the average. We're still in the process of trying to figure out what's actually causing that. Moving on to the water sales, the meter sales, we're about 96% of what historically we have been at this time. There's nothing that is indicating that we're not going to hit our historical figures. And then the fire hydrant maintenance report, we are still tracking at roughly 25 months to cycle through all the fire hydrants that in our system. Remember, it is the ISO recommendation to the fire department that we cycle through all our hydrants in 12 months.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Per the ISO requirement for the fire department, how they're graded, they get the maximum, the fire department gets the maximum number of points if we can show that we cycle through all the fire hydrants in a 12-month cycle.
12-month, okay. Got
So
it.
remember, we're planning on getting that to the 12-month number when the plant gets decommissioned and Mr. Elliott gets repurposed as a fire hydrant and valve maintenance tech.
So you gotta do 255 fire hydrants a month?
Correct. Yep. And so what's happened in October, Mr. Ballard went on vacation, and then in November, we had to pivot a little bit and start working out through our inventory in the shop and start clearing out to make room for the new stuff for next year. So after having a conversation with the team, they understand our ultimate goal, and we're now tracking, we should be able to hit that number.
You gotta do roughly 8.5 a day?
About,
An
yes.
8-hour day?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I
luck
believe
with
the 12-month timeframe, once we get 2 people deployed, we'll split the county in 2 different areas. We should be able to work through them. The only thing that could throw a wrench in the wheel is right now, we're not operating valves at the same time. So the policy, historically, how it's been done is 1 year we go through fire hydrants, or every couple of years we'd go through the fire hydrants, then we'd start the valve maintenance program. We're gonna pivot a little bit and do valve and hydrants at the same time. So we'll figure out after we get some data if we're gonna be able to hit that metric, and then if we can't, we'll have another discussion. Because you
How many
remember.
valves?
Do what?
How many valves are in the system?
I couldn't even tell you that right off the top of my head.
Thousands,
Yes.
would be my guess.
Well, maybe if you had them all side by side, you could probably do 8 a day. But if you get in the truck and drive to the next one.
So, these, we'll be able to provide a little bit more insight when Mr. Elliott gets repurposed and we get this program up and running. We'll come back to you after we have some numbers to gauge our timeframes. Any questions?
It's not about your reports, just a question. With this better weather coming in, do we have everything in order, or do we expect any issues, or?
So I met with Dr. Ledbetter yesterday, and we had a conversation. Based on that conversation, we reached out to the city of Griffin. Brandon Lewis is working on getting some type of literature that they could push out on their end, that they'll give us, and we'll push out on our end for frequently asked questions, what to do when temperatures freeze. We have offered up Mr. Pryor and Mr. Martin in the event that they need some assistance with the hard freeze. It's not necessarily the freeze that's going to be the problem, it's the thaw.
Right.
So Mr. Martin and Mr. Pryor are on standby to help out in the event, and Brandon with the city was very appreciative of that.
In addition to that, Mr. Skinner, we also talked specifically about all of our water tanks to make sure that we're thinking through the what-if questions for the water tanks because of the freeze that's coming in. We talked about Public Works and all of the requirements that we have to go around the county to make sure that we've got all of our water turned off for our outside spigots and our water fountains. So we had a significant conversation about the what-ifs and to help us make sure that we're in position to handle those. And that's when Joseph did a great job and reached back across to the city to make sure that we were all in collaboration with what the project could turn into.
And since everybody was in emergency preparation mode, I figured it was a good time as any to ask how we can better coordinate from our fire department standpoint in the event that they get deployed to a structure fire. So the city's policy is whenever the city's fire department was deployed, they would contact the water treatment plant and say, hey, we're headed to a structure fire, be prepared to boost up volume in order to account for a large volume at some point. Well, our fire department has not followed that protocol, so we're in the process of getting the communication best practices laid down where the city of Griffin's water treatment plants will be ready.
Yeah, because that was one of our concerns, and I'm glad you brought that up. As a pilot, I'm dealing with pitot tubes. So you've got 2 types. You've got those that are heated and those that are not. Well, the pitot tubes that are associated with our water towers are not heated. So if they freeze, that could cause some erroneous readings on our water tanks. And if we have a very bad fire and it's frozen with the tank showing as full, the tank may not be full. And we've got some opportunities and challenges that we're working through, and kudos to Joseph and his team for thinking through all of the what-ifs. Very proud of these guys. They've done a great job for us.
The transmitters aren't heated?
Yeah, those stations not heated,
What, the water tanks?
elevated tanks, yes.
The pressure transmitters are not heated?
No. The only thing, the Heron Bay water tank is the only one that has a mixer in it, a mechanical mixer. So we've asked the city to make sure that is functioning. But what happens is, since we don't run our tanks all the way full, there's additional volume there to allow for expansion if it does freeze. The only thing that we want the city to be aware of is if that transducer freezes, they're not gonna have good visibility on actual water levels.
If
So-
the transducer freezes, it's gonna be trash. It's
That's
gonna go
right.
in the trash can.
That's right.
No
That's very true.
That's right.
Thawing it out, it goes in the trash can.
Our first discussion was, let's make sure that we don't get below the 20 PSI.
Joseph, do we have a source of power at these facilities to put some portable heaters?
Well, it's
Some of them are outside.
it's the
They're
it's the
outside.
indicators up in the tank that we're worried about. It's not necessarily the transducers down in the vault.
We're talking about the float.
Yes. So a lot of them do use ultrasonic in the tanks. And at my time with the city, there were some issues that arose when the temperatures dropped below freezing. But this brings up another discussion where we'll engage with American Tank Maintenance and figure out if there's any type of economical solution that we can use for some type of mixing to keep the water turned over where we won't have that freezing issue. We've already started talking through those things, and we're trying to figure out if it's a cheap retrofit where we just weld some type of flange system that shoots water in different directions. So we'll have to take a look at it with our maintenance company.
Is that just to keep the water in the tank from freezing or just on your telemetry?
The water in the tank from freezing. Because we're only worried about the top part, because the bottom part will mix up to a certain level. But a lot of the floats, if they get stuck.
Those water taps to the transmitter are gonna freeze. They're outside.
They'll either be outside in a vault below the frost depth.
No,
We can always put heat tape on them,
I installed them.
insulate them.
I know where they're at. And the heat tape was put on 15 years ago, so I question if it still works, is why I'm asking.
That needs to be looked at.
What tap are you referring to?
There's a tap, there's a copper tap comes off those tanks, like the Sunnyside tank. The transmitter's right below the RTU.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking
On the
about the
rack.
Sunnyside tank.
Heron Bay,
Yeah.
I think's inside the tank.
It is, and then Jordan
Well,
Hill's
it's
inside
still
the
on a
tank.
small nipple right off the standpipe.
Yeah,
Jordan
but there
Hill, I think's
is,
the same way.
there
It's
is a
right off
little
the
heater
standpipe.
inside the Heron Bay and not Sunnyside, Heron Bay and Jordan Hill tank to keep it
That
above
should be
freezing.
enough for
Yes,
those. But
yes.
the ones outside, like Sunnyside
Yep.
and,
And then
Sunnyside,
Williamson Road.
Williamson Road.
Yep.
Those are copper lines right off the water line. They're not in vaults or anything. They're
I'll
out there
reach
mounted
out.
on the panel rack.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Martha to see if, to make sure they're insulated.
'Cause they'll go in the trash can if they freeze.
Yep. Okay.
That was our concern as well, and I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Wade.
Good discussion. That's the kind of stuff we want to do, and we fix it in the future, we won't have this problem again. So good discussion.
Okay. Moving on to the projects. As everybody's aware, we've completed our workshops 1 and 2 for the sewer feasibility study. I am waiting for a schedule update from Gresham Smith on when we should get our first round of analytics that come from those corridors. And with the revised map, the Noonan Road West, we're gonna adjust it to one parcel north and south of 16. Nothing really to,
May I mention the workshops?
yes.
I was impressed how well it went. It took us a while to sort out what we agreed to, how we're gonna handle it, but I thought Gresham Smith did a good job overall and came out probably better than I thought it was gonna do.
I believe we hired a great consultant for this work.
And good job by the board, understanding, getting together and saying, hey, this is how big we want it to be and stuff like that. And you're exactly right, Dick. I thought, when we started, I was thinking this is not gonna get it, and by the time we got through really the first one, we all understood how to do it and move through pretty quickly. So, good job all the way around by everybody.
That's all. I feel good about the way we've kicked off that feasibility study. I was pleased.
And I believe the results are really gonna give answers to where we'll be able to have good discussions with the Spalding County Board of Commissioners and the Planning and Development Department and the Zoning Commission in the event that they ever, if sewer's ever discussed in these areas, we can provide some information for them. So it'll help better drive their decision-making.
Yeah, I think it's gonna force some conversations that are long overdue.
Yep.
And tough decisions for us. Gonna be, in the end, tough decisions for us to decide which way we're gonna go. We've been talking about this for years. This is the time. We're getting ready to by June, July, August, we're gonna be in the decision-making side and not in the data-looking side. Okay?
We're still in process of demolition. We're still waiting for the contractor to mobilize the long boom. You know, the weather has been kind of terrible since we approved that change order. Right now, with the holiday season, it's looking like they'll mobilize probably the first full week of January. Nothing really to report on the CDBG Phase 2. The notice to proceed has been signed and executed for January 3rd. And the Flint River Bridge relocation, last month, we signed the MOU that was sent to the state. Since then, they requested some more information. We provided them the information as of the 19th of this month. So we're waiting to get that signed contract from them for the reimbursement. Paragon has revised the plans. They should be in Community Development's department for review for all the departments. And we reached out to some suppliers to look at lead times, and I'm probably going to request a decision from y'all to approve us to go ahead and purchase the materials for the job beginning when we meet in January. So it provides a little bit of benefit from us because we'll save sales tax. And we can acquire the materials while the project's out to bid. So it'll be sitting there waiting for them when they, for the contractor, whoever it's awarded to. And an update on the City of Griffin audit of water customers. We have received the data, and I will be presenting the findings to the Finance and Planning Committees in January. Nothing new from a development standpoint throughout the county. We are actively working on updating our policies and construction standards. So a lot of these, a lot of the projects should move on and off these lists a whole lot sooner once we get these policies adopted, the ones that we've been working on since, I guess, the summer, updating.
I'll mention that Joseph has been perusing all the counties around us, their specs, trying to pick out the best and commonalities, so I think we're starting to make some progress on that.
Good, okay.
That's it.
All right. Item 10.
Mr.
New-
Chairman, do we need to accept the general manager's report? And if so, I move we do accept.
Okay, did you make a motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, 8-0. Still 8. Item 10. New business, consider approval of a resolution authorizing an increase in the spending limit of the general manager from $25,000 to $50,000.
Mr. Chairman, as agreed to in the Finance Committee, I move we approve that resolution authorizing the change.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I have questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'm still reading.
Okay. Supposed to read beforehand. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, what'd you say? Okay, so, just so that everybody knows, I have a real problem with this. I have a problem with this with the county manager, not necessarily with the county manager, but any manager who we authorize to spend $50,000 without our knowledge, I have a problem with that. And I have a problem with that because it's been a problem in the past. This is not to say that it will happen with you, but you ain't gonna be the last one here. And I said the same thing with the county. Steve's not gonna be the last one here. We have a responsibility to have a policy that I think is friendly. One of the things that I saw in here was that a local business is considered someone who operates in Spalding County. Maybe that's a good idea, but we're a small area. And on the Spalding County procurement policy, a local business is considered people who do business in Pike, in Upson, in Butts, Lamar, and maybe even Fayetteville, because those people, there are people who operate out of Spalding County, but they're associated with us. And their income, general income, is basically the same as ours. So I think limiting, part of the reason we had to do that, because that talent was just not here in Spalding County. And I think we pigeonhole ourselves in when we decide that local procurement is just Spalding County. Because what is here that we have hired somebody to do locally? So that's one concern. The other is that there are several places in this contract where we talk about maybe it's to the best of our ability or within reason. I don't know what that means, because within reason is something different to me than it is to Stephanie. Oh, I thought we were voting on a resolution to,
The resolution, not the procurement
two different-
policy.
Right.
Two different items on
so
the
we're
agenda.
talking about the resolution to increase the amount. I just
Yes.
would like to understand under what circumstances have we been in where that we needed to have that happen that quickly.
My
So,
motion is to allow him the flexibility to go up $50,000 to fix problems that, because we don't meet but once a month, so.
so to answer
that's
your
a different
question,
discussion.
Ms. Taylor, the change order one for the demolition of the Springs plant. So remember, the contractor provided a change order cost of 25 grand to remove the dirt in the lagoon that we were not aware of at the time that the contract bid. With the project being well under budget, we budgeted $1.9 million for the decommissioning. It came in at $564,000 for the decommission work. That $25,000, by waiting until we met the next month to get it approved, is one of the reasons why we haven't been able to finish the project before the end of the year. So that's a perfect example of when we would, when I would exercise that signing. Something that was already approved, that's well under budget, to keep the project moving.
Let's make sure everybody understands. This is, Commissioner Flowers Taylor's got a point. She made the same point with the county manager to be able to do this. It's something that we need to all think through. You know, $25,000 versus $50,000. If you've made up your mind and you think you understand which way you want to go, we'll get ready to go. But I think it's a point we always need to stop, take an opportunity to think through and say, hey, does he really need $50,000 worth of responsibility? I'm in a board on another committee, and GBI is going through it now because the CEO had too much responsibility, too much authorization, and took advantage of it and did some things that were just flat illegal. And now GBI's got her and probably going to put her in jail. So I think we always need to take that opportunity to just not walk through and say, oh, he's a good guy, we'll give him the extra thing. Now, with that all said, I believe $50,000 is okay, personally, and I'm willing to vote for that. But I applaud Commissioner Flowers Taylor for taking the courage to stand up and say, I know that they said that, but I want to talk about it, make sure we all head nod that we're going to do it. Jim?
Do you have something, Dick?
Well, I was gonna say that in our case here, this amount of money could easily cost us money if you can't make a decision, make the change and move on because of inflation things. So I'm hardly in favor of the approval.
Jim?
My question is, Joseph, is this for projects that have already been approved? Or is this in general?
The resolution is in general.
I'm sorry?
The resolution is in general.
So,
Since we're using the example of decommissioning the plant, does it make sense to do it on approved projects in the resolution versus in general?
What, I see,
I'm just asking. I mean,
Who?
I'm in construction, and I know what the trending and pricing is.
Yeah.
And $25,000 3 years ago is $50,000 a day. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I really don't have a problem with approving the $50,000, but what I would like to happen is whenever that is exercised, it is included in our next financial report at the next meeting, so that we can keep an eye on it.
that makes
So-
sense.
I've been on this board over 10 years, and I can tell you that many of us who was on this board before were brain dead. And whatever happened, happened in a vacuum. And so, that's not to say in 5 years that you guys won't all be here, but we cannot guarantee that the same mindset is gonna be here. I totally understand what you're talking about. If it's something related to a project that we've already approved, we still need to know about it. It's just that I don't really even understand why this resolution is coming before the procurement policy, because many of the things that are in the procurement policy conflict with what we're saying here, in terms of when you gotta bid something out. Like I said, I have a real problem when people start talking about reasonable and most efficient, because those things are not defined. And if I was a swindler, it would be reasonable to me whenever I wanted to do something. Not that I'm saying you are, but I'm being real,
No, that's-
you know?
that's a valid
So-
point.
So I don't know, so I'm saying that us approving the increase, to me, should come after what we talk about happens in the procurement policy, because several places in there talks about anything over $25,000 needs to be bid out. So that's why I went to the other place when I was talking about it. I totally get it, stuff costs more.
Yeah.
In the wrong hands, we could have a AK-47 firing.
Yeah.
Well, this resolution does not in any way affect what gets bid out or not. It just would allow Joseph additional flexibility from the 25 to the 50. And typically, that's going to be involving ongoing projects, to Mr. Skinner's point. But it doesn't, this doesn't mean that if something is under 50,000, that he doesn't have to bid it out.
This is for day-to-day
It
operations.
is, it's operational.
But I personally don't have an issue with it, as long as each time that option is exercised, we are updated in the next month's financial report, so it can be monitored.
What if I, Wade, what if I modified my motion to say that any times that authority is exercised, it's included in the next general manager report? Would that?
Sure.
And I can
With
add that to the
with approval of
resolution
my
easily.
big part, is that okay? What'd you say? I talked over you.
I can add that to the resolution easily.
Okay, well, that's.
Is that
my
okay
new
with the
motion, if the second approves the rewording.
Okay.
I don't know who seconded it.
Jeff?
Yes.
That's okay with Jeff?
Okay.
So what is the actual motion now that
We approve the resolution authorizing an increase in spending limit of 25 to 50. However, when that authority is exercised, it will be included in the next general manager report. So we'll know that it happened.
It's a monitoring mechanism, and if it's something, if people feel uncomfortable, well, we can pull the plug on it at meeting if we wanted to.
I just verbalized what my concern is. I'm, you know, I know I'm
It's okay.
typically in the minority, but I'm just telling you, it can happen.
I
And
don't
we
know
can,
exactly what you're
we can
saying.
undo the resolution. We can bring a new resolution up if we start to get concerned about it at all. That's my kind of my issue with it. We turn around and look at it a couple times. He comes back to us and says he did this from 25 to 50,000 the month before. And we look at that and say, hey, because our oversight responsibility is huge to me, and we're supposed to be checking. So I don't have a problem with motion at all. Any more discussion? I mean, does everybody understand what we're signing up for? Okay. All those in favor of approving the motion, please raise your hand. 7? Oh, 8, excuse me. All right. Motion carries. Thank you. And once again, it's important to me that we have the opportunity to speak among ourselves and say that. We don't get caught up in the business of, okay, it's not okay to say something. So thank you, Commissioner.
You won't ever have to worry about that one, man.
Yes, ma'am.
You're running
Yes,
around
ma'am.
All the bashful kids, right?
All right.
Like my mother did.
Item number 2, consider adoption of our Water Authority procurement policy as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna, I move we approve it. But Joseph has an interesting background on how he got here, so anyway, I move that we approve it.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Now, into discussion. General Manager?
So back when we had the planning committee over at the
Jim.
senior center, where Mr. Davison attended to talk about the sewer delivery strategy, Ms. Flowers Taylor asked for a procurement policy be drafted. And it was discussed that we would adopt Spalding counties, but then Ms. Matlock said, could we please review Spalding counties and make sure that we're adopting the one that best fits our needs? So after reviewing Spalding counties, I viewed procurement policies all over the country, and there's a couple of water authorities out west that this mirrors, that has kind of the same setup as us, as a general manager with authority. So what I did was I used both of them, and so Spalding County and the references, and they're very similar, meaning when do you require an informal bid versus a formal bid? Informal means you can just go after 3 quotes. A formal process is you go through a RFP, you bid it or you advertise it for 4 weeks, and then you open bids in a public manner. So that's that's mainly the gist of this. But so it mirrors Spalding counties, but it is not identical to Spalding counties. But to Ms. Flower Taylor's question regarding the Spalding County, I read Spalding County's procurement policy, and the methods of procurement, item 1A, is straight out of their procurement policy. So when it talks about other surrounding municipalities, I would need to know what you're looking at to see if we can reframe where maybe we put a radius on it. You don't necessarily have to have a business license inside Spalding County.
So Stephanie might have been here long enough. We clearly talked about the fact that the local economies around here help support Spalding County's economy. So I think it's important for us to really define what local is.
Okay.
Maybe local may not be Fayetteville now. Maybe their economy is just like local wasn't Henry, because Henry had their own stuff going on. But I would like to see that defined so that when we start looking at this, and I don't know where C.W. Matthews is from. I think they're from Pike County, maybe, somewhere like that.
C.W. Matthews is up in Kennesaw. I think you're talking McElroy?
McElroy. Well, no, who is it that we used to get asphalt from somebody here locally?
Yeah, C.W. Matthews has a plant here locally, but they're
Okay.
headquartered out of Kennesaw.
And that's what I'm saying. They do a lot of work, but many of the employees work right here. That money stays in Spalding County. It goes to the grocery store. People in Pike shop here, or someone in Pike's business may have something that we don't have. But I think it's important for us to define what regional or local for us is, so that people know exactly what, I'm eligible. And I think that, and I didn't see this, but in the Spalding County policy, it talks about what being local means. Like, that means if your bid comes in 10% or over, or blah, 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 because you're a local resident, a local person, you have the option of bidding higher and us accepting a bid that's higher, just because we know that the money will remain local.
Yeah, we have that in this policy where if the difference
see
between
that.
the two lowest bids, if it's a out-of-county company that won the bid, but a local company, a local bidder who is considered a business whose principal place of business is located within Spalding County or has held a valid business license with Spalding County for at least 1 year prior to the award of the purchase contract, if that local bidder is within 5% of the lowest bid, we have the ability to go with the lowest bid, or the local bidder. So is that not, would you want that expanded a little bit more?
Okay, I see that, and under methods of procurement.
But I know you want to expand local. And I'm going to use Wade's favorite word. We could say that it's counties that are contiguous to Spalding County.
I kinda like that.
You can do it,
That's what I was.
yeah, you can do it by a miles away from kind of thing.
You need to be careful, because we might start discussing how you define that word.
Contiguous?
Mr. Chairman,
I think
may
we've
recommend-
discussed that to
I
death.
understand what Gwen's saying, and I actually agree with her. So, we don't have a procurement policy, and we need a procurement policy on the books, because we're procuring things. So, I understand potentially some amendments or changes, tweaks, but I think we need to approve it so we have this policy on the books, so we can procure legally by our own policy, and then we can come back and revise it as we need to and define some of these things. But at the moment, we
We
don't
have
even have a
zero.
procurement policy.
Right now,
and
we have
need
zero.
something.
If this is an 80% solution, it's a whole lot better than,
No, sir.
But if there are minor revisions that we could make to the policy today, you could approve it with those revisions.
Well, that's fine, if you can define that. I
I have
can't.
one.
I like it like it is.
What's that?
But I understand it could be improved a little bit.
This procurement policy actually got brought up when I brought up hiring an outside attorney to look into a few things, the Sun City Peachtree plant, some contracts, and, which I'm still waiting to see the RFP for that, because we had a board consensus to do it.
It's done.
But can you scroll down to section G, Charlie? Excluded from procurement policy, they give some examples there, 1 through 4. I'd like to add item 5, professional services.
And why?
I was told in that meeting that we didn't have to contract out or put out for proposal professional services, and I would like to have that as an example listed underneath that list of excluded from the procurement policy.
But where does that come from?
It came
Is that
from her.
state law? Is it what somebody else is doing, Stephanie?
Professional services?
I mean,
Yeah,
that you don't have to bid out professional services. Is that a state law?
it's law, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'd
And
like
I
to
know
add that as
So-
item
the city
number.
does that too. If you got a particular lawyer that does exactly what you want, you don't have to bid out.
There's
You can
some
hire them.
things you need to go to a certain group of people for. Yeah. And, in the case of what I want looked at, I do not want, the ambulance chaser down the street to be able to bid on low bid this job and get it. I want somebody who's actually qualified and has worked with government and authorities to answer the questions I have. And if we're gonna give a list of examples, I see no harm in adding item 5, professional services.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with it unless you define what professional services are. Is that engineering? Is that legal? Is that spiritual? Where do you draw the line
Where's
on
that line?
defining professional services? You're looking it up, Stephanie?
No,
I see
ma'am,
you leaning
I'm
in.
writing number 5, professional services. Because,
Because we have professional services in the county as an attorney, but we also are bidding those services out because we're looking for the best price. We just want people to know again what it is that we want from them. So personally, I don't see anything wrong with that. What has happened in the past in government here in Spalding County is that we have gone to one single vendor forever. Now, I'm not saying that we don't get a good price, but how do you know if there's not something better? Perfect example, the county bid out indigent services, which is legal services. Well, we had some things that we wanted them to do, and several of the people that came didn't want to do that because that's not how they did. So we picked somebody new because they really met the criteria of what we wanted and what we needed. And so I think sometimes it's really good to go back and look at these things because you're paying this money out, but are you getting equivalent services?
This doesn't limit you to go out and look at that. I just want it on there as an example in case this conversation comes up again, because this policy didn't get brought up until I brought up.
just,
Hiring
yeah,
an
just because
attorney.
it's excluded doesn't mean that you couldn't bid it out if you chose to.
But I also consider engineering a professional service.
Engineering, IT,
So
Well, to the sewer feasibility study, once we start building stuff, from personal experience, it's a bad idea to start swapping engineers.
Right, I
Because you're
get it.
building a system and a process, and if you get a lot of hands in that pot, it usually doesn't work out good for the end user, from what I've seen.
Another thing that happens in professional services, there's a time element. You're being sued or something's going on and you need professional help quickly,
Yeah.
and you don't have the time to bid it out and do all that, so that's a flexibility that's handy.
I'm not saying that you
But
can
it's not there if
exclude.
it says excluded.
Well, it says it's not limited to, it's non-discretionary services is what it's saying, but I don't see where it says, is there anything in that section that says that we can't just go bid it out if we wanted to?
no, you could.
Yeah,
But what I wanted to say to you is that when the next group of people look at this, excluding means excluding. We're saying what we're thinking it is, but I'm always thinking forward of who the next person is gonna sit in this seat. And I think we all have to look at that because the rules that we set here today, someone else will try to interpret them when it's time to come to that spot. I don't disagree with you, I just think it needs to be defined. Legal services, engineering services, specifically engineering services because of the nature of our business.
That's about all I can think of off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay, we can put professional services, parentheses, legal,
County.
and do that.
Well, it may not always be from the county, though.
I just put a number 5, professional services.
Yeah.
That's true, because Gresham Smith is not an engineering firm for the county.
well, what happens is, if you take it personally, you need a bankruptcy attorney.
We better not.
Well, no, I'm saying personal, but whatever it is, there are professional services that are very specific areas that you need. You don't need every Tom, Dick, and Harry lawyer to bid on something specialized, so you go to him, so,
The RFQ that has been drafted, that Joseph and Charlie and I have reviewed, is not specifically for an attorney to look over the specific documents that we talked about before. It's for a conflict attorney. So it's more general, but it definitely has requirements that would make it such that anybody, not to use your phrase lightly, ambulance chaser, would not be actually bidding on that project because they wouldn't be qualified. I have no idea what you're talking
I'll
about.
go back to the previous statement. We need a procurement policy, and I'm in favor of voting for this one, and I agree that professional service ought to be added, but
What
you
about
may know later,
area?
but we need something on the books, in my opinion. This is pretty good.
So Dick, we've gone like forever without a policy. We have the opportunity to get it right, nearly right, or better on the front end. And for that reason, I don't think that it's an emergency for us to vote on this just to have it in place, because what happens is now we gotta go back and start digging everything apart that we had some questions about or that we're not sure about. And I just, being frank, I guess because I wasn't at the finance committee meeting, I didn't hear these recommendations, and of course, you have the benefit of, because you were there for these discussions. But, yeah, I don't think, I have more questions. I don't see anything in here that talks about the IGA with Spalding County, what that really looks like. It says that we will procure services from Spalding County. Is that to the tune of $25,000 a year? Is it $50,000 a year? What is it that Terry does for us, or whoever it is? It just, there are very general statements in here that I feel like can just be ripped apart because we are not specific about them.
Are you
So-
referring to the procurement administrative guidelines?
No, I didn't write down where it was. It was where we referred to using the county's person, and I'm saying Terry.
Oh, contract administration? Yes.
Right.
Yep. So what Spalding County does for us is Terry Bass provides the RFP number. She makes sure that all the processes followed adhere to the state procurement guidelines. So because we don't have a procurement or purchasing department, we're relying on Spalding County's expertise in that. So while we're setting limits of formal and informal, we have to make sure that it's, regardless of the process, that we follow the state law. So the reason why this is very general is because we're referencing Spalding County. Spalding County has their entire procurement purchasing policy. It's a 16-page document that lays out all the different aspects and how they go through things. But
Where's the agreement? We don't have an IGA with them, do we? So we just do this. So that's the other thing. There needs to, if it's not in writing, it doesn't happen. And personally, I would like to know how much it is that we pay Spalding County annually to provide that procurement service. And us to have an official agreement with them, not just that their person is gonna do it.
Well,
That would be separate from the procurement policy, so
Right, but I'm
the,
simply
yeah.
saying it needs to happen before we say that this is what it is. We don't have an agreement with them. We've just been using their stuff and their people. Like I said, I don't know how much we pay for that.
I'll give you an example. When we was talking about mowing right-of-ways and things like that, was anybody on this board aware that we bought a tractor and gave to Public Works under a previous county manager? And that tractor's never been used to mow our right-of-ways?
No.
okay,
That's why I
we're way
want the
off in the
outside
weeds
attorney.
here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of stuff you don't find until something happens. So I'm just, I'm being extra. When I see areas that I think need defining, I'm just telling you this, as I read through the document, these are the notes that I came up with.
Okay.
So,
And I agree. But the finance committee met, had a very robust discussion and agreed to this. I think it's a good policy. I'm not arguing it couldn't use a little more revisions, but I think we need to approve it, and anybody who disagrees or wants more specificity can bring stuff in and we can change it, but we've been through this, the committee, and we agreed that this is a good one, and it's got a solid start. We can always change it any way you want in the future, but just to keep pushing this down the road and say, oh, well, we need to do this and this and this, that's not the way I like to do things.
but
So-
Dick, this isn't pushing it down the road. We decided 2 months ago that we needed a policy. Y'all worked on it and we're back.
And we did,
So that's what I'm saying.
and the finance
You're-
committee approved this.
Right, but some of us didn't have the advantage of sitting in the meeting with the finance committee. Y'all are really not sharing your rationale for a lot of this, other than the fact that it needs to be in here. And just very simply saying, that is the whole purpose of the finance committee bringing the recommendation back, is so that the rest of us can ask questions about it. There's no seal that says just because the planning committee or the finance committee recommends something, that the rest of the board doesn't need all the information about it as well. Because what I hear you saying, but not the words, is that we did this in the meeting and you just need to agree with it. That's what I feel like I hear you saying.
No, I'm saying it's all been done and it's been published, it's done everything, it had all kinds of,
Where has it been published?
in the agenda.
Yeah.
So,
All
I
right,
just think rather than, we disagree on the implementation, but I'd like to revise my motion with a vote on it. I'm gonna continue to move that we approve this as stands with the one change that Wade wants, that number 5 is professional services. If that's okay with the second, and we can vote to approve or not approve, and that's up to the board.
I will second that motion.
So,
No.
whichever way it goes, that's the way it goes, so.
Okay. Any more discussion? Anybody who has not jumped in there that wants to jump in and talk about it?
I would like to know what an arm's length agreement is. Is there a real definition for that?
Yeah, that's a legal term of art, but, arm's length means that it's basically on the up and up. It's a fair market transaction. It is not between, parties who would have a conflict of interest, like relatives, and it's for an actual verifiable price, not some crazy either discounted or crazy inflated.
So what you just said to me for the definition for arm's length for 2 words took you almost a minute to explain it to me. And so that is what I'm saying, that this language is not clear enough to me. Nothing, I'm not fussing at you. I'm simply saying when you say arm's length or reasonable, it's different to everybody.
Oh,
And-
it's a lot
and-
of legal jargon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And a reasonable person standard, I don't think you would have anybody argue there's not some subjectivity in that. A reasonable person is, to me, basically what either a judge or a jury says a reasonable person is.
So if you guys want to approve this as is, my only suggestion is that there be a glossary. Because clearly some of these words in here have different meanings, and arm's length is my example, that you, as a lawyer, should be able to make it clear enough in a definition of a glossary of what reasonable means in this case, what arm's length means in this case, even what threshold is. So yeah,
We can-
Okay.
We can
Call
come
for the
back and
question.
adopt a modified one later, right?
Yes, absolutely. 1, 2, if you've got, all of us, if you look through it again and you decide that there are some questions about it, get those questions back to the Finance Committee to be able to define those portions of it and bring it back to us a second time if necessary. But we have 0 now. This is at least an 80% move forward, 50%. We've got some policy, and we can adjust off policy. So if you've got questions afterwards, you've read through it and you say, I'm really not crazy about these words. I need glossary, I need whatever. Send a note to Jim and to Cheryl and say, hey, you all look this up, think through this. Does this need to be changed? Bring it to us on after your next meeting on the Finance Committee, okay? All right. Everybody ready to vote? Everybody, any other questions, discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the proposed procurement policy, raise your hand.
As amended.
As amended.
With the amendments, with those amendments, excuse me. All right, 7, all those opposed? 1, motion carries. Now, all of us who raised our hands, we have an obligation, if you've got some portion of it, to send it to the Finance Committee and say, hey, I need some more help here. This is 9 of us holding our hands around a policy. We all have done it. So,
The glossary is a good idea.
So write a note to the finance people and say, hey, please go through that. All right, item number 3. Consider approval to revise the vacant utility construction coordinator position to an engineer position and approve the job descriptions and salaries as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the proposed utility construction coordinator engineer position and the recommended salary range.
Okay, and Jim, you second that motion?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? HR, you're okay with all this?
I have a question.
That's the HR.
Can you break down the engineer 2, 3, and 4 real quick?
So engineer 2 is basically entry level. So that is someone that came out of college, hopefully passed the EIT. The engineer 3 is has more than 1 year experience, but less than 4 years experience. So that's the bridge between a non-engineer and a professional engineer, and then engineer 4 is a full-blown E. PE.
I think your salaries are too low. I'm gonna say that again. I said it about the last position, which I don't think you got any applications for.
You did, and I went through Gainesville, Bartow, Gwinnett, and these are in line with their systems.
And I have 70 engineers at my company. So I know what they make. I know what we pay them coming out of college. I'm just,
All right, we'll start
you
off,
know.
we'll start off with these salaries and see if he doesn't get any, applications, then we can come back and talk about changing the salary range.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Joseph, so as an engineer 2, does that mean that they have no experience? Are they just somebody who passed the test, like a nurse who just gets out of nursing school? You know this much, but you have to work to get the rest. I'm just not really clear on that. What kind of expertise does an engineer 2 bring to the table?
So that is a 1 year experience. So out of college, you have your bachelor's degree in engineering, and you have 1 year experience in our water and wastewater distribution and collection utility experience. So I hope we would entice an EIT, which is an engineer in training, which is an engineer that graduated and has started their process to become state licensed. So that's the first test in the process to becoming a PE. So engineer 2 is 1 year experience with a bachelor's degree. Engineer 3 is greater than 1 year, but less than 4 experience. And then a PE is your engineer 4, which you need a minimum of 4 years experience in the industry in order to sit for the exam.
So I don't know if we can talk about personnel, like, I'm looking at these numbers, and Stephanie, you tell me if I'm off limits. I'm thinking, okay, so obviously we want somebody who has experience, and Wade says that engineers get paid more than that. My concern would be that we would be hiring an engineer who would be coming in making almost as much money as a general manager. So is that not something we can talk about in open session?
You certainly can talk about it in open session, but you're not required to, and we do have an executive session for personnel.
We hire electrician. I just hired one 3 weeks ago at $65,000. He had 2 years of experience, and that's what I had to pay to get him.
So I don't
That's
have a
an
problem
electrician.
with that.
That's not an engineer. It's not somebody who's been to school for, realistically, probably 5 or 6 years. Graduated with student loan debt and all that. Those guys come in and we pay them $80,000. That's out of school. We pay them $80,000 to start. Then they can't do nothing. Nothing.
These ranges don't include anything, as far as benefits, which would be provided to these employees. So these are just basic salary ranges. And all you're doing is approving these job descriptions with the salary ranges. If Joseph found that he needed to increase those, he could certainly come back to you and ask for that.
And one thing that was discussed in the finance meeting is if it's voted to approve reclassifying or revising the utility construction coordinator to an engineer position, the reason why you're looking at 3 different options is to not limit the applicants. But after talking to Miles, there's 2 different ways we can handle this. We can either state the salary range or state the starting salary that we're projecting, but then say your compensation will be based on experience and certifications.
So would it be smarter to and I don't know this because I haven't ever worked in personnel, is that if you advertise this, to advertise the package, your salary package, instead of this is what your salary is without whatever possible, I don't know how that works.
I guess we could.
I'm kind of looking at Miles, I don't know.
Let me Stephanie brought up benefits. We give all the major holidays. We do a 5% contribution to the 401k. They also have the option for a Roth IRA. We pay the employee's entire insurance premium and their deductible every year. For a family plan of 4, we pay $7,500 of deductible. Then we provide them with a company vehicle. We pay the gas and the insurance and all the maintenance on that company vehicle. And at the end of the year, any personal mileage they use, we reimburse them their tax liability for that personal mileage, in addition to the starting salaries I just told you. And that, we still have trouble getting applications.
I mean,
Got any openings?
nobody's,
I want a job over there where you got.
I'm just being,
I mean, I think you have to be real.
I'm just, that's what, and I have personally done 30 of those offer letters this year. I mean, this isn't me just hearing things in the office. I was actually involved in the hiring process. I'm just telling you what we had to do to hire employees that were competent enough.
and government employees are never going to be able to match a salary of private industry.
Right.
Ever.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, again,
but we're not a
this gives us
government
a starting
entity.
point.
Yes, you are.
We need to
Yes,
raise it.
you
We can
are.
always raise it.
You are a government authority, a legislatively created authority, which is a government entity.
We're a private company with a public.
You're not a private company at all.
That's what we are.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this is what the general manager came forth and said and the finance committee said that they would like to do. My answer is, we'll start with this, and if it doesn't work and he has to talk to us about, I need more money, he can come back to us to do that. But first things first, we gotta start with someplace. The big issue is, do we wanna transfer one position to a different kind of position? That's a big decision we're making. And then the salary range, which is what we're all, total compensation and things like that. But my answer is, let's start with what he wants to do and see where we are. All right? So I have a motion already, and I have a second. Any more discussion?
Motion and a second to change this position to an engineering position rather than, and accept these wage,
Approval of the job descriptions and salaries as recommended.
okay.
All right. All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
I wish y'all
8-0.
luck.
All right.
Hope you got somebody on the hook already.
That's what I'm saying.
And if he doesn't, we're going to get to see it again.
Don't tell Wade about it until after they're hired.
Listen, if we get into a big national recession, we might get them cheaper than that. You don't know.
All right, consider approval of joint resolution amending the biannual meeting requirement provisions in Article 3 of the City of Griffin and Water Authority Sales Agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the amendment to the meeting requirement.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Now, let's go back and make sure everybody remembers what we did. When we were doing the Water Authority, one of the things we said we wanted to do, and we were hard over, for those that weren't here at the time, is we wanted to have 2 meetings a year with the city to talk about things. They wanted to know what we're moving towards, and we wanted to have information that they had for us. And we were serious about it. Since that time, major changes have happened in personnel on both sides to be able to do that. We've had 1 or 2 of them. For the most part, they have not been what I consider really very productive. I don't have a problem at all changing the philosophy because we now have a general manager. We didn't have one then. The City of Griffin has changed people too. Because of the wording, those people, I think, are meeting more often, so they don't have to get the city manager and the county manager talking to them and bringing in commissioners and things like that and board members for us. All right, so
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out that the initial resolution that was presented to us did not require 1 meeting per year. It gave the option of deciding to have meetings as needed. And what Joseph and I had heard from some of you was that we needed to have at least 1. So we did make that revision. It was accepted by the city. So this does require 1 meeting per
Good.
year jointly.
just wanted to make sure everybody understood why this was a big issue that we fought to get into the thing with the city. All right. Any more discussion on this? Yes.
I did not vote for that because I knew it wasn't gonna work. Secondly, this is the second time that we've changed this water contract, and we have not gotten anything for us either time. I hope that if we have to make a third change, we look at this and we negotiate to our benefit instead of it just being a convenience. I know this is this changes for both of our advantages. But, many of us are seeing that what we agreed to in the water contract is conflicting with what it is we're trying to do in the county in terms of expanding water or sewer or whatever. So I just hope that the next time, and there will be another time, that we have to amend this, that we look at this from the benefit of, okay, we also want to have something amended.
So, you know, Joseph and I and the Secretary Treasurer had a conversation about, are we ready to bring in some changes we wanted with the water contract? And unintended consequences were our concern at that time, and so we're reviewing those to make sure that we didn't think we were quite ready to throw a couple or three things back into that we want to do. We're discussing it. We're not ready to bring it to the board, to the authority yet, but those questions that you're talking about are exactly the same questions that we have talked about. And yes, we're going to have some stuff, and they're not going to be, in my opinion, things like this. They're going to be fairly substantial that we're going to have to negotiate hard again for. All right, everybody understanding what this is about? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7. All those opposed, like sign. 1. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Consider that, okay. Next, consider approval of the meeting dates for 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion, and I have a second from Ms. Fanny. All right, any more discussion on those? These are, remember, we started, for those that are fairly new, we started back when we were doing quarterly meetings. We're not there anymore. All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand.
This is for the meeting schedule.
Meeting schedule, yes, I'm sorry. Raise your hand, please. I didn't catch everybody's hand. Dick, are you voting against?
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. 7, those against, like sign. 1. This,
Cause y'all be coming here too early.
I'll second that motion.
8:30 in the morning is really, really, really early.
okay, what was your, Ms. Gwynn, what was your issue?
8:30 in the morning is
Oh,
really, really
okay,
early.
okay, I understand. Thank you. All right, our next regular scheduled meeting will be held on January 18th at 8:30 in Spalding County Annex Building number 108. We're going to do, so everybody knows, make sure you understand, we're going to, in just a minute, do an executive session. We're going to go through everybody's stuff. All right, Secretary Treasurer?
Yeah, just 2 things real quickly. First, very bad weather coming toward us this weekend, especially here at Christmas. The reports are indicating that we will see temperatures at 16, 15, and 12 degrees on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening. Please share with everyone that you know to take precautions. Make sure that the water spigots outside are either covered or disconnected so that we don't have freezing in our homes and damage to our properties. Also, there is work going on in the background for a warming shelter that will be held at, right now it's my understanding that it will be at the First Baptist Church here in downtown Griffin. It is a warming shelter only is what's being discussed. More information will be available on our social media sites and our website here as soon as we can get all of the details worked out. Second thing,
Just a sec. Reminder, that includes pets. This is cold weather for pets, and those that have pets outside, this is something you got to think through a little bit more. So just besides spigots and stuff like that, we've got pets outside, okay?
absolutely, please bring your pets in. It's going to be very brutal over the next few days. Second thing, I just want to say great job to our team here that's sitting on the front row and to Joseph for thinking through the what ifs to make sure that we're prepared for this weekend and the bad weather coming in. These guys are on call and it's Christmas. So from my mouth to your ears and my heart to yours, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for standing in the gap for our community, and God bless you and Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you. Okay. General manager's comments? Just going through the thing.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, okay. All right, working our way through the list that's in front of us. Ms. Fanny, any comments? Thank you. Ms. Wanda? Okay. Ms. Matlock is not here. Ms. Gwen?
For my New Year's resolution, I'm voting that we start meeting at 9 o'clock.
Okay. For those of us that are retired, it really is a better time. Okay. Mr. Skinner? Okay, thank you. Mr. Morrow?
Same, and I do think we have a great team now. I'm really impressed with Joseph and the team, so we've come a long ways this year.
All right. Mr. Jeff?
I would like to thank the team myself, and also back to the weather situation, freezing potential, or the freezing that we're gonna have. I know the city operates our facilities, but we own those facilities.
Yep.
So I'm thinking if we need to do something ourselves to make sure things are freeze-proof, that we take that upon ourselves and not count on the city to do it. So, yeah, that's it. Merry Christmas.
Vice Chair?
Good job, Merry Christmas, and I'd like to see that RFP.
Okay. One of the things that we agreed to in our last retreat was that we were going to do more training of the board, bringing on people and doing stuff like that. I've been watching it. The issue that I tried to keep in my mind for this year was sewer. The Grisham-Smith business is a big issue. I think those of us that were not as familiar with sewer, listening to the contractors and then going through the stuff with Grisham-Smith is really a educational issue that we've got. So I'm considering that as part of that. Executive session, discussion or deliberation on an appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a county officer or employee as provided in OCGA 501436. I call for a motion to go
I move we
into
go
executive session.
For the purposes as published.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 8-0. Thank you. We're in recess, executive session. We'll come
First National Bank.
We haven't gotten lunch money enough, have we? Breakfast. Oh. Shout out to the elevator. Yes, ma'am. Get in this chair, I'll roll you right over.
It is Christmas, that's what I'm saying.
Can you get over it?
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Mr. Chairman,
I will type
Hold
up
it, hold it. I don't
executive
think we're
session minutes for you.
Are our mics hot,
Are we ready?
Charlie?
we own,
Yes, everything's on.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we cease closed session.
Second.
All right, motion, discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 8-0.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, I move that we return to open session.
okay.
Second.
Do we make motion to that, or?
You have to do both.
Okay, I have a motion and I had a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 8-0. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to begin a car allowance for $500 a month for the general manager of the Water Authority, and to award the 5 other employees with the Water Authority a $500 bonus.
all right. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 8-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. We're adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Well, that was a goat rope, but it turned out good.
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
You got to think through that.
Okay. Merry Christmas, y'all.